It's 6:30, and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Cunningham Town Board. It's Monday, July 12th, 2021. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Wu. Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Hersey.
Here.
Councilmember Colasetti.
Here.
Councilmember Bishop.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkin.
Here.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Present.
Supervisor Chenoweth.
Present.
Okay.
Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public participation. I have one public input card. Since this is our first town board meeting back in person, I want to remind folks, if you want to address the Cunningham Town Board, pick up a public input card that are on the back table there, fill it out, and give it to our interim city clerk, and she'll get it to me. So I have one card from Angie W., and this is regarding 206 and 208 California leases. So Angie, please come up to sit at one of the microphones, and you can speak. And you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So I just wanted to address the lease for 206 and 208 East California that was passed at the last board meeting. So just for my clarification, on May 7th, we had gotten the first letter that the Cunningham Township became the new owner of our properties at 206 and 208 East California. At that time, we were given until August 15th of this year, of course, to get the incentive of the $2,000. We also received an updated letter on June 7th stating the very same thing. And then June 30th, we received an email stating that Cunningham Township would not be renewing our current lease. And again, that was June 30th. And it states that we would have to sign this new month-to-month lease that was offered and approved by the board by July 15th. So my question is, my current lease does not end until July 31st. So I'm just questioning the timing of the dates, because if I were to sign this, it would be backdated starting July 1st. So why would I sign a Cunningham Township lease when I already have a current lease that goes until July 31st? And then it also states if I did not sign it by July 15th, I would not get the incentive of the $2,000, whereas before, we had until August 15th to move out to receive that incentive. And those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the Cunningham Town Board? Looks like we have one other person. Go ahead, Martel Miller.
How you doing, Mayor? I'm Martel Miller. I'm from Champaign. That's where I live at right now, but I stayed in Atlanta for, I say, close to 16 years. I'm here to address the council about Township, and I would like for the Township Board to come to our place of business and see what we do there, because I'm hearing a lot of things about what people think about the Township. But I've been dealing with city government probably over close to 15 years. I've been in this chambers numerous of times, and I talk about people. You see on my shirt, love my people. And when I say that, we're talking about poor people where you don't see their voices coming here, but I see them every day. Right now, I'm hearing that Urbana City is putting on roadway that they should be like a extended stay. You can't stay there no more than 28 days. But we don't have a shelter because See You at Home has closed. Urbana don't have a shelter, but we got homeless in Urbana. I see them all the time. We had some people staying in a tent in Urbana right off Main Street. I went over there probably 2 or 3 times a week to see about them, make sure they're okay. But for us not to have a shelter, then put where a hotel can be fined for having somebody there more than 30 days, I think the mayor could make like a executive order through this time, which we're gonna need it because they're gonna start evicting people. Are we just gonna let them stay on the street, or figure out how to help the poor people? You know, I'm just sad to see what I see going on when it comes to people, but when it comes to corporations and land developers, they are very well taken care of, but poor people ain't taken care of. And a lot of time people say they don't pay taxes. They pay taxes all the time when they buy food at the restaurants, when they buy food from the grocery stores, when they buy these cigarettes or alcohol. You know, taxes are being paid by poor people. So I feel they should be taken care of. And our office is, you can't get the grant from us. That is the last resort for you to get any kind of income. If you don't be able to require the grant from us, that means you got nothing. And I watch people's lives change every day, you know, from being homeless to give them dignity. You know, once you stay out on the street so long, you lose confidence in yourself. I just want y'all to pay attention to what goes on in Township office. Years ago, I was coming here, they had a lady that was over the Township office, and they was clapping their hand because she was saving money. When do you know when poor people don't need money, don't need assistance? They were clapping their hand in here because she was saving them money. Danielle's predecessor dealt with 26 people with 4 full-time staff. We deal with probably, at one time during the pandemic, I had 70 clients. You know, I tried to reach them. You know, homeless folks don't keep phones, but I did my best to make sure that I could try to stay in contact where we can get them a resource to get them the help that they need. I hear that we got 3 houses in Urbana that's empty. You know, that is not fair to people that's homeless. If the city got houses and they're not renting them, they should find a way to use them houses. They should never stay here empty when we have people sleeping on the streets. You know, and I know y'all see them. Y'all drive by them just like I do, but I don't drive by, I stop and see about them. You know, we got mentally ill people walking the streets here. I get calls from your officers to come out and talk to them. You know, we got to do something about what goes on in Urbana, about the homeless. Champaign got a shelter that's not closed, and I don't consider Champaign and Urbana 2 different towns when it comes to poor people, because poor people go where they can, and don't none split Champaign and Urbana for Wright Street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I think we can clear up some of the misunderstanding about the hotel situation too when that item comes up on the agenda. Does anyone else wish to address the township at this point? Okay, we'll move on to committee to verify bills. Danielle?
Good evening. It's nice to be in person and see your faces, not in a box. So this last month, we had $31,227.38 in expenditures from the town fund, and we had $58,802.85 in the expenditures from the general assistance fund. So that's a total of $90,030.23. I'll just note on the income side, you'll see that we were paid out 2 second property tax disbursements totaling over $500,000 this last month. So I was really pleased to get that before the end of the year. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and then I'll go over the rest of the memo in front of you during the reports of officers.
Any questions about the bills? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the town fund and general assistance fund?
I move to approve the town fund bills, general assistance fund.
Second.
Moved by Chandra, seconded by James. Further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Hersey,
Yes.
Councilmember Colacetti,
Yes.
Councilmember Bishop,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkin,
Yes.
Councilmember Quisenberry.
Yes.
That motion passes. Reports of officers.
So I brought a printed copy of the supervisor's report. I just want to go over a few things. I think the big picture report is that on general assistance, things are getting better, and with housing, things are getting worse. So essentially, with general assistance, we support people who are out of work. We're seeing more people going back to work, and that's a good situation. And we also support people who are awaiting disability payments or disabled in Urbana. And we're seeing a high number of Social Security cases. In fact, many of our closures each month are due to that, which really is kind of unprecedented. We've been doing a lot of advocacy around that, and it's paying off. So we are at 86 current participants. I think last month we were at 93. 33 are homeless. We are opening the community work program. We have 2 tracks. Martell Miller is our case manager for what is now called the Employment and Education Opportunities track, and then Liz Parashon is our case manager for the Disability and Wellness track, and then Lilia Garcia is head over the track that supports families as well as those who are applying for the first time for Social Security. So essentially, with rental assistance, we supported 12 households with rental assistance this last month. It's been pretty steady. Typically we've seen 8 to 10 a month. That has gone up the last 2 months. The mayor mentioned at our last meeting that there is utility assistance available at the county level. That's through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program that just opened up this last week, and it can pay up to $20,000 in back rent and utilities. So you have to be behind in both rent and utilities, not just utilities for that, but it can pay for that, and that's water, power. Only complete applications will be, and they must be submitted by mail or dropped off. There's no email. So anyone who's living in Urbana who needs help applying for rental assistance, our office has turned from processing rental assistance cases. We've actually processed everything on deck that we have, and we are now focused on supporting people in applying and making sure their applications are complete. So I would encourage Urbana residents, if you have any questions at all, to contact our office. And this application for the county is now linked off our website as the main rental assistance application. So if people go to cunninghamtownship.org, you can link to the countywide application, and and if you submit it to us, we'll actually package it and walk it over. So we physically bring it over and make sure that the application gets there, and we track it and do follow-up. Eviction, so I got a call from 2 different moms this weekend Both were homeless in Champaign-Urbana, and they said that they had been evicted. And I did confirm today that evictions have resumed as of June 25th, and this is specifically for tenants who did not submit a COVID declaration to their landlord or were not eligible to. Many people did not know that you needed to actually submit a declaration to your landlord. There's a link in the memo. There's a link at the bottom of our, there's a link on our website as well to do that. So essentially, folks still have time. They have to submit that by the end of July. To their landlord, but we are seeing the courts start, which is very frightening. I know that Champaign County Courts is currently hiring a mediator. They're actually, through a third party, hiring a mediator to help with landlord-tenant mediation. I really was hoping that would be in place before we saw the eviction court fire up, and that person is still in the process of being hired. So we have a call in to find out more about what it's going to look like. The state of Illinois eviction moratorium will likely end August 24th, but it looks like evictions have already started, and I did confirm that they were legal evictions. Everything we've seen to date has been an illegal eviction. Landlord says, I'm demolishing the property, you have to be out tomorrow. That happened in Urbana, and a family was made homeless because they believed their landlord. Just so you know, you cannot be evicted unless a sheriff is involved. If a sheriff does not come to your house, you are not being evicted. It is not a legal eviction, and you should call Land of Lincoln Legal Assistance or Township immediately, and we can assist. So I'm concerned about rental assistance and, kind of, I guess I would say, put on your oxygen mask first and we'll get moving. With utility support, we've had a number of payoffs. We have about one household per day. They're all screened for whether or not they're behind in rental and need rental assistance. If they need rental assistance, we send them to the emergency rental assistance. So we continue to process, I would say, small requests, and that fund, we still have dollars in the fund and probably will so through the summer. Housing advocacy, we continue to put people on the wait list for Pinewood Place in Urbana. Anyone who is awaiting disability, who has an active SSI case, awaiting a determination from the federal government on SSI, who has a disability, through the townships can apply for the Pinewood Place in Urbana. So we're in the process of assisting with that, and we did a kind of a webinar on how people could come to Township for that. We've now helped 7 homeless households with housewarming, so there were 2 more this last month. And we have supported 128 general assistance participants representing 87 households to apply for subsidized housing. So far we've gotten 23 households in, and we continue to work on that. The Housing Authority is in the process of launching new vouchers for the homeless, and we're meeting with the Housing Authority, our office, and Andy's office this week to discuss how that will look. So hopefully I'll have an update on those vouchers. About 113 vouchers. Before last summer, we received, as a community, 50 vouchers, and we pretty much we've come close to expending those. So it is really a blessing to have the 113 vouchers. Emergency housing, CU at Home remains closed. I don't have a date because I am not a staff member there. My best guess, based on what I'm seeing, is end of August. On June 12th, which was Sunday, our hotel partner informed us that due to City of Urbana restrictions on the length of stay of guests, our guests can only stay 28 days. Since we're unable to apply for vouchers before 14 days of stay, so you have to actually be in the hotel before you can even start applying for a voucher as a homeless family. You have to be in for 14 days. And it takes a minimum of 20 days to process the voucher, about 3 weeks. And then we actually have to help people find housing, which we've been doing very quickly because we start the process as the voucher is moving. So our average stay is 41 days, which is phenomenal, but it's not 28 days. So we currently have 4 households in emergency housing, which is great. I think last time we spoke, we had 8. Some were exited. We had some issues with exits, but generally speaking, we were able to move people into housing. The issue is that we submitted our special use permit, which we wanted to do after extending the new lease to the tenants at 206 and 208. We submitted that special use permit last week. And it's scheduled for August 5th at the Plan Commission and the Committee of the Whole at the 16th, and then August 23rd. So this is actually past move-in day. So as we anticipated, although it seems to be a worse situation than I expected, you know, the window, it's like that in the Star Wars movie, where they're basically trying to get out of the trash compactor and they're stuck in it. That's how we're feeling at Township right now, is we're not sure if we can keep our emergency shelter open. We may need to stop having intakes for the next 6 weeks until we can resolve that. I did send an email. As soon as I read my email this morning, I sent an email to the mayor. Mayor graciously responded, and we're going to be discussing to see what we can do. But I'm very concerned about this because we've had guests stay at this hotel, as has Courage Connection, RPC, and a number of other partners. CU Public Health had people stay at this hotel all over multiple times over 28 days. So that's a little bit of a surprise, and it's caught us off guard, and I'm not sure how we were going to handle it. And then lastly, with Bridge to Home, we serve 300, that would be a dream. We serve 3 households with rapid rehousing services, and we're really ramping up that program to give 12 months of rent for literally homeless families to transition into permanent housing. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to add some information to that before
Please.
we start the discussion. And this is regarding the situation at the Roadway Inn. This indicates that you were informed on June 12th about the hotel?
Sorry. It was Sunday, so this past
Yesterday.
Sunday. Yes.
Yesterday,
Yes,
okay. Because I
yesterday.
learned about it 2 hours ago, so I tried to find out as much as I could in the past 2 hours. So here's the deal. Yes, the city of Urbana has an ordinance that restricts regular hotel rooms to 28 days per residency. This is because from a safety standpoint and a living standpoint, a typical hotel room isn't geared to sustain long-term living. There's no stoves, there's no refrigerators, there's no, your typical things that would support a household living for an extended stay. And then there are extended stay rooms that are geared for longer stays. However, from what I understand, throughout the pandemic, people have been staying in the hotels for longer than the 28 days. Typically what happens, and even in normal times, if a hotel wants to let a guest stay for longer than the 28 days, they'll change rooms, and then they'll start the clock over again. And that's what's been happening through the pandemic, as I understand it. We did get an email from a guest at the hotel. I don't know whether it was a Township client or a guest at the hotel complaining about some of the conditions that seemed to have triggered concern on the part of the hotel. And like I said, I just heard about all this 2 hours ago. But it sounds like the management at the hotel is willing to work with Township and the other local social service providers, and we'll figure it out tomorrow. But this is not suddenly because the city of Urbana is enforcing the 28-day limit. This is because the hotel has chosen to now use the 28-day limit as a reason to, I think, trigger this discussion. So I don't know where it's going to go. Like I said, I just heard about this at 4 o'clock. So I look forward to the conversation tomorrow. I'm sure we can work out something with the hotel. They got to ensure the safety of the rest of the entire resident population at the hotel, the guests, as well as the people living there for several weeks at a time. And some people, as you said, have been staying longer than 28 days, but that is certainly nothing new. It's been happening through the pandemic. It happens before. It's just how it's been. But the 28-day limit is in place because, those rooms are not ideal for long-term stays. They're just not set up for that. But in an emergency, absolutely. It keeps people safe and warm, and they have basic facilities. So we'll get it worked out.
Yeah,
We just
might
don't
be
have
helpful
time
to speak to the city inspector. Martel met with a person, we knew that the city inspector was called out, and Martel
Right.
met that inspector on location, and I wasn't sure what would come of it until I got this letter from Roadway
Okay,
yesterday.
well,
so.
we'll work it all out tomorrow. We
Yeah.
just haven't been able to do that in the past
Okay.
2 hours. So stay tuned. We'll
Yep.
let you know.
Thanks, I appreciate you
Sure.
looking into it.
And I did look into the balance of the Emergency Solutions Grant, which I assume is another source of funds, and there's $300,000 there, correct? That can be used in an emergency for
No, not
housing?
for our grant. Our grant has to essentially, we have to have them referred from centralized intake for the homeless. And then we need a process of inspecting the property and moving them in. And so far, that process has been so extensive that the person who entered the program a month ago is still in our shelter. So absolutely, if we had some time, and we received that referral back, which we can always make a request, but we can't determine who we receive. We get the referrals from RPC. So we essentially refer everyone, and then they refer back the people who fit certain criteria. So the length of time that it takes to locate housing and inspect it, and move people into housing is about a month to a month and a half that we would need. And actually, of the 4 folks, there are some folks who are on that track. But we also received calls from 2 families, and I said, I need to talk to the mayor before we can intake another family right now, because
Wow.
the last thing I want is to say you can't come.
Right.
You know, we're going to kick you out after 28 days, because there's no way they will be successful after 28
No,
days.
I
so.
think we can work all this
Okay.
out. We just need some time. Thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion? Chris? You have to remind me to look this way. I'm used to just looking at the screen.
Danielle, I had just a few questions. And Martell, maybe you might know about this. So of the 33 homeless, how many are actually outside? Or are you counting also couch surfers and you know?
Yeah, so I would say there's 2 different definitions of homeless that are kind of working definition. HUD definition homeless means literally homeless. They're staying in an unsafe condition outdoors in a car, in an abandoned building, on the street, in the parks. And then we have McKinney-Vento definition homeless, and that would be somebody who did not have a fixed place to stay, typically was moving around from house to house, didn't have an address where they could really receive mail. And so for the 33 homeless, these are folks who essentially they don't have a fixed address, and many of them were staying at See You at Home. So now the question of where are they? Some of them are in our program, in the hotel program. We have some folks who are sleeping outside, and we now have a street outreach team, thanks to COVID, and the rise of people sleeping outside. We have Martell is part of our street outreach team, as is Shea Robinson, and so we do direct contact with anyone who is street homeless. And the first thing we do is try to sign them up for general assistance, and that basically is the route into housing advocacy, where we can get information and help them based on their situation move into permanent housing, whether that's through an emergency housing situation or not.
Okay. And I get a sense that for those that are outside, you're trying to stay in contact with them
Absolutely.
once a week or something like that.
Yeah, and I would say we have a number of urban residents who come to our office several times a week, sometimes every day, and they may be asking for, toiletries, toothbrushes, any, various needs. We have a number of businesses that have generously given us gift cards, and we give gift cards to homeless residents so they can get a bite to eat. So, yeah, we stay in contact, and until this hotel situation, we as long as we could get them into general assistance and they became our participants, we were able to move folks into hotel rooms. So that our goal is to get them off the street as soon as possible. It's very dangerous, especially for women, but also for anyone to be on the street right now. So as long as we're able to engage them. Some folks have mental disabilities that make it difficult for them to engage at that level. So we may be able to get them on general assistance, but they're having a difficult time actually trusting or wanting to go into hotels. So there's a few situations like that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Sharice?
What happened with See You at Home? I thought they had reopened And what, they're closed again? What happened with that?
Yeah, so See You at Home, due to staffing and safety concerns, it was beginning of June. My calendar is a smearing end of May, beginning of June. They greatly downsized their operations. So after some conversations with providers like ourselves, they agreed to keep those who were on track to get a voucher, because you can only get a voucher if you stay in shelter. If you're homeless and you are street homeless, you do not qualify for the current vouchers, C-19 vouchers. So basically, we had a whole bunch of folks who were in that process of getting those vouchers through the housing authority that would have basically fallen off that process. That would have been very difficult. So thankfully, See You at Home, and we're very grateful that they at least retained the folks who were in the voucher process, so they wouldn't lose that opportunity. And that they've been hiring. You've probably seen their emails and on Facebook, they've been trying to hire staff to increase their capacity. And we do have a meeting with them in the next week to discuss what that reopening will look like and how we can partner. But they are not open to new residents, and every single day, we have a single person, male, female, who calls us and says they don't have any place to stay. In fact, a lot of people are being paroled into Champaign County, and their parole officers say, contact See You at Home. The next place they contact is us, and we explain the situation. It's not a good situation. It's not a good situation, especially with all the water and all the rain that's been happening in the heat. It's not safe.
Okay, so how long does that voucher process take?
Voucher process, I would say from the time, you cannot be eligible until you've been in a shelter for 14 days in Champaign County. So it starts after 2 weeks of being in shelter, then you qualify, and then essentially, I would say, depending on the barriers to housing, discrimination being the biggest barrier to housing for folks with vouchers, for folks with felony convictions, for folks with children, or who are not students. Essentially, we gotta get through that barrier, but we can get people in, if it's probably another month to 2 months, and if they have major barriers, it could be 3 months to move into housing. So I think the longest that we've seen is 3 months, though, even in a difficult situation where it's hard for that person to, because of their credit and their criminal background, to get housing.
And Mr. Miller was talking about empty houses. I'm assuming that those homes are owned by somebody, but are they owned by the city?
They're owned by the city of Urbana. 2 of them are actually the same zoning that you have over on California Street, so they're not zoned for emergency family housing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at those we're looking at options for those, including helping support first-time home buyers. So, which is another way to help people build a life.
Build wealth,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I think they were given, the city of Urbana owns those properties and is required to use them as transitional housing. And so, we would be very happy to partner with the city of Urbana in providing transitional housing for families. It's very hard to find housing for folks, especially for larger families, and they're all 3-bedroom homes. So with your council hat on, which we'll begin here shortly, I'd encourage you to look at those properties and see what kind of partnership that we could have together.
Any other questions? Chandra?
When you mentioned the vouchers it takes 3 months at max, are those the same people who are allowed to stay in the hotel for 2 weeks and then or they have to be at See You at Home?
So the hotel program qualifies as shelter.
Okay.
Yep, and essentially, anyone, the way we've been doing it is anybody who is actively unsheltered, meaning literally homeless on the streets, in an abandoned building, in a tent, if they are a general assistance participant in Urbana, so for Cunningham Township, we've been housing them. So we don't want any of our participants, except those who may choose not to be in housing, or for some reason You know, they've been disruptive in the program and have in multiple instances violated the program rules and put other people at risk. There are few situations like that. Other than that, we would like to house them so that they can be safe while they're on track to receive a voucher.
Okay. And
Unfortunately, this doesn't exist in Champaign, so we get a lot of calls from families and individuals in Champaign who are Champaign homeless, because this does not exist in that context. So we control what we can. So.
and then you mentioned your street outreach team. How successful have they been?
It's been phenomenal. It's one of the best things that we've done. It's been difficult. You know, sometimes you think you don't have the capacity to continue stretching and expanding, and then someone comes to your doorstep and you find the capacity. And that has been how it's been at Township. I had basically gave the option to staff members if they would like to have some field time to do that outreach, and both Martell and Shay have come forward, and we're in contact with a lot of individuals who are street homeless. And I would say anybody who is street homeless, I mean, you see people on the streets and they've already, everybody I get this postcard to is like, oh yeah, I know about Township. So, but we continue to show it to people and I say, I am the supervisor, come talk to me. Come talk to me, the buses are free for now, and I'd like to talk with you and see what we could do to help.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. If, you know, we hand these to people we may see on the street, if they are like, oh yeah, I already know about it, like, what do you do then? I mean,
I think that's the best you can do, but I always tell people, keep this in your card, and when folks ask for money, if you feel like giving them money, could go ahead, but either way, I would say, please give them a card to let them know that we're here. And I do have folks who come in and the card is folded up in their pocket, and they come in and they take the card out, and they're like, you know, so people come and talk to us that way. We are going to get smaller cards. This is kind of large, so we get business card size as well. And so we encourage our friends and neighbors and residents to pass out information about Township. And, you know, we can, even if somebody is homeless, if they're hungry, we can do food delivery for them. You know, we'd sit down and talk with them, and, you know, all their information is kept confidential, so we're just here to support them. We're not sharing their information with other folks, which is sometimes the concern.
Okay, thank you.
Grace?
Thanks for all the presentations and the work you guys are doing. I was wondering about the emergency housing situation, because to my understanding, it's the hotel stays for now, and then hopefully the new property on California. And are there any, plans or dreams of like a permanent shelter where people know, like, I don't have a place to stay tonight, this is the place I can go, kind of like See You at Home was for Champaign?
If I could wave my magic wand and I was Queen of Urbana, which I'm not, but I have dreamed of this, we need to get past this idea of a single shelter for our community. It's not sustainable. It doesn't address the diversity of needs. Putting men and women under the same roof. I think See You at Home has done a great job doing that. That's difficult, but I would not advise it. I think we've had people where the abuser has been on one side and the abused on the other in domestic violence situations. And I really think that we need to look at a shelter that is in Urbana, similar to what we have in Champaign, and not assume that Champaign should bear the full brunt of a shelter. Our shelter is families only. I wouldn't say it's same day, but it's close. It's about as close as you can get to same day for families. So if someone walks in at 3:00, we may not be able to accommodate them that night. But honestly, if we are able to accommodate them, if they screen as literally homeless and we can accommodate them that night, we do. And then I have a set of angels who have come to me who have said, if you need someone to just pay the hotel directly for somebody, call me. And so those calls that I get on Sunday, it's not Township, but I will call those angels and say, I'll be a matchmaker, and it's outside of Township, and say, hey, why don't you all, if you need support, this person can support you, and then come talk to us on Monday. So, we are in conversation with See You at Home. We would like to be able to do 24/7 intake. So this next year for families, I would like to be able to do 24/7 intake, and I'd like to partner with the shelter to do that, and we've started those conversations. Because ultimately, you know, oftentimes a homeless incident will happen after hours or weekends, and we need to accommodate that.
Thank you.
Jaya?
Just hoping you could provide some clarification on the timeline with the leases and the incentive that was mentioned earlier, just to give us a clear sense of where things stand.
Yeah, this is the first I've heard of that concern, and I would just really encourage tenants to call us and email us directly, because I would love to be able to answer your questions. I have not, no, if you could send me the contact, I've responded to the contacts. No, but that's not this is, you have to actually contact the supervisor.
Excuse me. Excuse me, can we have this conversation outside of this meeting, please?
you.
But I understand your concern, and I hope you can continue this conversation tomorrow.
So basically, the lease, the month-to-month lease, starts the day after their lease ends. So the lease that you approved, if you recall, there were brackets that said, day after lease ends. If there was a typo in a lease, I can take a look at it, but this is the first I've heard. So the second is that the July 15th deadline is to sign that lease. The incentive still works for folks who move out by August 15th, but you have to sign it by July 15th, so we have some time to plan. So we essentially gave folks a month, and if, let's say, for example, you sign it and you don't, and you want to stay month to month, that's fine. Or you sign it and you move out early, you get the incentive. So essentially, the only options folks have at the two options are you either stay through the end of your lease, you don't contact us at all, you don't want to have a conversation with us, that's fine, you leave at the end of your lease, cool. Or you sign the lease that you all approved, and essentially you have to do that by July 15th, which is coming up soon, and then essentially you can either receive the incentive if you move out before the 15th, you give us 3 days notice you're moving out, or you can stay month to month as long as you're in compliance with that new lease.
Thank you.
Okay,
Can I
Is
say
it-
may I ask one more question?
one more question.
Okay, and the month-to-month is up until December 31st.
Correct.
Okay, so if, Angela? Okay, if you sign your July 15th, the lease for the new owner is basically what I'm getting from this. New owner, new lease. Okay, so you sign the lease by July 15th. That puts you in line to receive the incentive should you move out by the 15th of August. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
get through the red tape.
Thank you.
Okay, if you aren't moved out by the 15th of August, you still have until December 31st to move. And that's when the month-to-month lease kicks in. But I don't know that you get, I think it's a prorated incentive after that, or no?
Incentive ends August 15th.
Okay. Did that answer your question?
Yep.
Sort of. My original question, was why this says July 1st. Shouldn't it be August 1st?
It should be. If your lease ends July 31st, it should say August 1st, and it's simply a typo that we can correct.
And that's the sort of thing you're going to need to work out.
Exactly.
To get
Just
tomorrow
Just got to
together.
email me back.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, and just for clarification, because I thought that this was the lease that you all, as the board, approved to be July 1st date.
Yeah, I understand the confusion. It's just the one they approve because different leases end at different times. In brackets, it just says the day after the lease ends, because some people had a lease end May 31st, June 30th, or July 31st.
Okay, I think after the meeting even, you could talk with her one-on-one. Any other questions for Danielle? And I assume there's no assessor report this week. Okay.
He's not present.
We'll move on to unfinished business.
There's
Any
none.
new business? Okay. Okay, well, no further business before the Cunningham Town Board. We'll stand adjourned, and this will be followed by a meeting of the Urbana City Council when the clerk indicates she's ready.